we're off to the races.
All right.
Four Friends Show
Hi, friends.
convenes again. Tia, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for doing it. Well, she's thanking us now.
You're in it now. It's too late now.
I'm sorry.
It's like when I get on a roller coaster and I look at him and I'm like, I can't believe you got me on this thing.
Just need a little pep talk.
Well, remember,
I do.
If you have any reservations, that's the person you blame right there. you.
I'm like,
she
oh,
looked
me?
behind her.
I genuinely
innocent.
did. I'm not even kidding. That
How
was not
innocent.
even like a
man.
fake out. I was like, is there a picture?
Yeah, of you.
Okay, so let's just go right into the deep end here. And again, we are not like an overtly political show. I mean, if people want that, that's out there. You can go find that other places. I'm more about the philosophy of things, as you two know, and you'll find out very quickly. Here, and I apologize to Jerry and Julia if we may, at times through the tapestry of the last 5 years, may have touched on this indirectly or directly.
The tapestry.
So if it brings back, well, I'm good. You know,
I'm excited about these words.
I always
you're
wanted to be a
using.
wordsmith. I'm not, but I wanted to be.
He's got his ball peen over there.
Just keep everybody in order.
Is that like the gavel?
The ball peen. This is something that Rocco Cozza and I have bounced around so many times. He's probably tired of me asking this question because it's a hard question to answer, I'm sure. But are we, maybe because of technology, maybe because of the closed-minded nature of where we find ourselves in 2024 generally, or other factors, are we entering a point in time, either it's here or it's coming, or maybe it's decades away, but at some point I believe that we are not going to be able to trust the reality that we see, feel, think, move around in. We're getting to the point where we don't trust it. Not that there's another reality in the phone. I think we're there already. But are we going to get to the point where so many of the bedrock foundations, whether it's the Justice Decision or Justice Department, or it's like sports or it's entertainment, that things get eroded through technology, virtual, everything gets melded into one big thing. And in that new world we find ourselves in, are we going to lose certainty and trust in the big bedrock foundations of how our society works?
I've never trusted reality.
It's so funny that you bring this up because I have a picture of me at 14 standing in front of bunk beds in my bedroom, and right above them was like something I had painted on the wall that said "Question Reality."
Yeah, you should. Reality is a sketchy place.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely agree with that 100%.
Ex-boyfriend of mine, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, loved mushrooms, amongst other things.
Now, well, let's just to psychedelic mushrooms, not the type that you put in your stew.
Portobello.
Both, actually.
Okay.
But we just lay on the ground in his living room listening to music and talking about like reality and AI and deep fakes and all this like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And because he liked mushrooms so much, like I was like, okay, man, like, AI's not going to be that crazy, and deep fakes and, and he was like, no, you're not going to be able to know if that's Julia's voice or if that's someone that's captured Julia's voice and now reconfigured it into something else. And everything that guy talked about is
coming true.
Yeah.
It's happening.
We're living in the future.
Yeah.
And that's horrifying, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I do feel like that was kind of the thing. It's like back in the day, like if you got caught on videotape, which videotape isn't even a thing anymore, even though it's still like a term that we use. It's not like they use tape anymore to like record things. I mean, I don't know, unless you're doing it for like nostalgia's sake. But like, I definitely think that was something that you could kind of trust, like if you got caught doing something. But now, like you said, I mean, it could be AI manipulating your voice, your likeness. Like how many celebrities have said that they've been like, found out they like endorse products they didn't really endorse, stuff like that.
And revenge porn is so scary. Oh,
yeah.
So
Big
scary.
time.
Which I feel like the regulation and prosecution needs to catch up.
Yep.
Because that's so incredibly violating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more on. But I think in general, that probably can be said for a lot of things that are coming down the pike. I mean, at what point in time do you have, even today, let's just say hypothetically, this is a terrible suggestion, but I'm going to put it out there. Let's
You're just full of good ideas.
let's say someone starts cloning Jerry. Like online, like
You are full of
like
good ideas.
well, that could be.
I think that's already illegal.
that could be horrifying. But you know what I mean. Let's just say use your likeness and your image and all that, your voice, in an AI capacity, and then puts out video clips of you doing horrendous things. I mean, horrendous things.
We don't need AI for that.
Yeah, those exist, but
But like, what legal? I mean, obviously, we know it's wrong. It's too easy to say, "Oh, that's wrong." Well, yeah, it's wrong. But what legal recourse does he have to combat that?
Right.
yeah,
Like,
when
how's
does
that-
the
how's that-
legislation
how's that
catch
defined?
up with
How's
like
that
the
defined?
technology?
I don't know. Would it fall under like libel and slander, or I
Probably
guess it's,
something like
Well,
that.
a
Yeah.
72-year-old experienced attorney is probably not going to be equipped to potentially work with you there,
Yeah,
right? And
to
because
field that
that
case.
generation that she practiced law in,
Yeah, they would have never
it's
come across.
that's a
something
different
like that.
landscape, right? That's a different landscape.
Hmm.
And are we now putting laws in place?
I honestly don't know.
Right? I don't.
I mean,
either.
I'm sure they are because wasn't that one of the reasons for the was it the Actors and Writers Guild, whatever? They
Oh,
shut
yeah.
down for
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little while they were striking, and I remember hearing that part of the controversy was you don't own my image
Right.
after I'm dead. You
Yep.
can't put me in movies. Mm-hmm. You know, they're talking about you have an actor making movies 10 years after they've died. Mm-hmm. So I think they
wasn't
are.
that? Didn't Bruce Willis do something? Because like when he quit, I want to say I like heard this art or not heard an article, like heard like a news story that was like there was like a little snippet about before he like left acting that he like put certain legislations in place so that they couldn't use his likeness like moving forward, because I think that it has happened. I don't know if the actors like either just never didn't give consent, or like it was like they assumed consent by omission, sort of like because there wasn't anything like legislated against it.
I know they've done it a couple times.
Yeah, they did it with Carrie Fisher.
They did it with Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
I
And
think.
then Fast and Furious, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Oh, but they got permission from the family, from like Carrie Fisher's
Okay.
family,
Okay.
and from like in those situations,
Yeah.
it was like respectful of
Sure.
the person who passed away.
Right.
I think in addition to the writer's strike, the strike right after that of the talent that supports video games is almost even more influential for this conversation, because after these actors, either their likeness or their voice has been used for creation of the video game. With AI, it's very easy because, of course, they're animated. You know, it's
Yeah.
not exactly them. They don't, quote unquote, need them anymore.
Sure. So they don't have to keep
Right.
getting paid.
And so they stood up and were like, no, and that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
So if you fast forward it, right, at some point in time, we're going to be in a world potentially, just a guess, that where we have AI generated art, and then will we have a second segment of art even valued differently? Maybe a human experience created art. Are we going to head where like each is going to be defined
Maybe like
and monetized differently?
that'll be retro art made by human beings.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
People will be like, yeah, I remember back in the 1900s.
Which already makes you feel like you're like turning to dust when people say that.
Well, like in the windows of the stores in Lawrenceville and some of the vintage consignment stores, there's vintage 90s clothes right now, which I have big problems with. We'll just put that out there. What is that? What human art is going to be?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, something along those lines. Because, like, if you think about it now, like, even, like, if you look at movies from the 80s and the 90s, like right before they really consistently used, like, computer generated art for like all of the, like when they still used animatronics, when they still used, you know, like different types of effects, when they still actually blew up buildings, not maybe not whole
The
buildings.
good old days.
But yeah.
When we used to blow shit up for real.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like when you needed like $1 billion budget because you had to destroy a whole city block, you know? That sounds like the good old days to me.
Are we even going to go out anymore as things progress, you know? Because if you look at what's popular with social media, video games, more people preferring to just see movies at home and stream them.
Yep.
You know, stream music rather than going to a show, stream a new movie rather than go out to the movie theater, sit around on Facebook instead of actually getting together with your friends. Like, we could get to the point where you just don't really go out that much and you kind of live your life through these screens and these apps and these streaming services.
You think we're actually going to get there?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever thought we were going to get here with seeing AI in our lifetime and the things that it's capable of, and I don't know.
I feel like it is, people are starting to kind of go back a little bit the other way. Like, you guys are married, I'm single, and dating is so special right now.
Let's dive into that.
And I mean, but the apps have gotten just worse and more. It's just kind of sad.
Yeah.
But then I was at a bar, and I just, sitting there with my beer and just looked over like, hey. And the guy looked at me like, you weirdo. And I was like, whoa. I just gave you a hey.
Yeah, I didn't assault you. Don't worry.
No, I mean, I'm a girl. Like, I'm not doing anything like
offensive or
right.
And he just kind of looked at me like, why aren't you looking at your phone, looking in your beer, like staying in your, I don't know.
What would you estimate
Yeah,
his
like
age?
why are we here then?
Estimate.
I mean, he's probably close to my age. I mean, he's probably late 30s.
Okay.
But I mean, 'cause I wouldn't be like looking at like to a younger 20-year-old. I'm not like I'm
No
not like a
judgment.
creepy.
I know, right?
I'm not a creepy cougar.
No judgment.
I mean, I don't think that's creepy at all.
This is
I
the
think-
judgment-free zone.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
those young
real,
men
for
are damn
sure.
lucky. Okay.
Thank you.
We've talked about this too on this show multiple times, just the difference in demographics, and I'm in an odd demographic because I feel like I'm kind of dialed in on technology. I kind of always made it my purpose to do that, so maybe I don't speak as a, someone almost 60 in that way, but I think a lot of people my age, maybe a little older, really, they're tuned out to it. When you say AI, they think it's kind of funny that there's an AI image on their phone that was created by a computer of some good-looking girl, but they can tell something's not right. But because she has like 10 toes on one,
Yeah.
Regardless,
It's always the hands.
They think, they think it's
Right.
amusing, yeah. But they don't really have a great idea of what's coming. They don't think about that, And I just wonder at what point, what generation is going to start accepting AI as the norm. I mean, really start accepting it as the norm.
Or if like that it's because I feel like there is like a kind of a cohort of young people like rejecting social media, and like you said, kind of like going back to like being in places in person, but like
Really, or is it just like a nostalgia thing, or
I don't
like
know.
a vintage way of doing something, and then they're going to shun that eventually and go right back to the
I've
more
heard that it's
tantalizing
like
thing.
kind of sad for them where they see these like things, and it's part of why like they say people are so obsessed with the 90s because there's all this like internet like documentation of it, but they have never lived a life that wasn't documented by the internet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's like they somehow have managed to like capture enough because it was close enough to like the technological like boom that like all that data is available. But like if you were there, you didn't, like every moment wasn't going to be captured on
No.
camera. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, and
Well, it was born in from a consumer standpoint. Would you not agree the internet was mainstreamed at the beginning of the mainstream was like 95-ish, 96 it started to become a thing. Now it was created in universities decades prior to that, but ultimately, so we have half the decade with no internet, and then the other half of the decade you have the introduction of the internet in very primitive ways. But you're right. Everything's not recorded and filmed in the 90s.
America Online, baby.
Yeah.
It was like the Wild West.
Yeah. And that obviously started to change in the 2000s.
I remember when we got our first computer, I was all excited. I thought I was going to be able to do all these great things on it. And I just went on the internet.
Played RPGs.
Yeah, I just went on the internet.
Dial up.
Basically, on my dial-up, exactly. Went on the internet and played the equivalent of Dungeons and Dragons online.
I know Jerry always said I rescued him from that world because I was like, do you want to come hang out with me?
She kept calling me. I was like, this is my internet time.
I was like, no, I'm going to come
I'm
over.
living my sad and lonely existence. I didn't bother you. What is this?
Nah, you like it.
Remember being on the phone and then someone would get on the computer?
Oh, that noise.
And then you hear that. You're like, I'm on the phone. Get off the computer.
You have one line. That's it. Oh my gosh. And then like your parent could like pick up and listen to what you were saying on the phone. It was such a different world. Like, I mean, that's the one that's like terrifying about like just starting a parental journey now and like being like, oh my God, she's going to have so much more capabilities than we did, and just praying that she's responsible with them.
Well, my son was born in 01 and my daughter was born in 03, and they always have known the internet, you know, they based upon their age group, you know. So when I talk about the before times, they know I'm talking about pre-95.
Not the 1900s, you mean?
It's unfathomable to them, really, that there was a period of time where all the answers weren't on your, you know, in a device in your hand, or that there wasn't a tether, you know, that you like. You trying to say Pappy gave you the car and you just drove off with it? I said, yeah. And they didn't know where you were going. I'm like, they knew where I said I was going.
Exactly.
But I mean, we lived untethered, right?
Yeah.
And it's just such a different thing. And that's where, but in the bigger picture, it's like we are going, I feel like the technology was so interactive for so long through the web and just everything. And I feel now that we're leaving the interactive thing to a degree, and the technology's kind of taking over, and then it'll start to dictate to us. That's the horrifying thing as I see it. I'm not saying we're there yet, but I can see that. And I think AI is the launch of that. I don't know.
That's why I started my business. Like, I have a nonprofit. Sorry, I've been in the nonprofit space for most of my career, but I pivoted into the for-profit space in AI governance to help businesses and government departments create AI use policies for internal and external.
Oh, well, this is a perfect conversation.
Right. I was like, Julia, what did you tell him about me?
Do you know what's so funny is that
I did a little homework.
this is how you can tell that I'm like authentic, is like I was like, I know she does something really interesting and she travels a lot. And I was like, and I know she's writing a book, but I can't remember what it's about. But I remember really enjoying talking to her about it. But that's all I remember. So like my short-term memory, especially like now, is not great.
So
Like
you're giving it. You want government agencies to be able to harness AI
So
or regulate it.
To be very, very clear, I'm not an AI apostle. I'm not here to tell you to use it or not to use it. I'm telling you that you should have a policy on how it's used in your business or your department. For instance, like just a simple example, open source or closed source. Mm-hmm. So like ChatGPT, for instance, that's open source. Anything you put in there, and I'm not even talking about, Julia and Jerry's address. I'm not even talking about that personal. I'm talking about a paragraph that you wrote describing your podcast, and I just put that in there to then build a blog off of. Well, that's now out there. It's part of the internet. Mm-hmm. But there's other generative AI programs that do similar things that are closed.
And you pay for those probably.
Yes. But then it needs to be your choice for your business, whether you want it closed or not closed. Again, I'm not telling you to use AI or not, but I'm saying choose the parameters that you are. And so I'm just helping walk people through how to stay in the driver's seat for your department or your business. And I think that that's important. Like I use AI in the development of my company's education materials, but then I go through it and then I audit and edit everything, and then I add a tea of flavor to it. So it's using AI without thinking and just
We're not there yet.
and don't think,
But don't you-
question it.
Yeah.
That's important.
This is our segue.
Yes.
This is good. This is good.
You're all excited.
Oh no, because I just had this conversation on the Lawcast we filmed last Monday, and we didn't head down the road I was hoping we were, probably because I didn't push the car correctly in the beginning, but I'm going to push it now. So, do you believe that at some point in time, the technology will go, maybe not in our lifetime, but it will enhance and it will be trusted, tough word to use, in society to the point where we give ourselves over in certain segments and areas of society. Driving cars is probably going to be one of the first things. You know, we're now being conditioned to experience, like or dislike, but be aware of Tesla, Ford, these companies providing driving mechanisms in their electric cars. I have one. I don't use it, but I'm aware it's there. Ford, Blue Cruise, I have it. I don't use it. I'm aware it's there. Over time, when the technology gets better and better and less accidents and the whole thing, will we be conditioned to use it as a part of society? That's just one little area of society. Are we going to get to the point where we're going to trust the technology? Will society trust technology to take over aspects of our lives, things that we used to do for ourselves, or through the cooperative efforts of other humans? Are we headed there?
I don't see why not. If you look at, mobile phones, so many people said, I'm never going to get one of those. I don't need one of those. I don't need to be checking the weather constantly. I don't need your apps that you have for me. I'm just not getting one of these phones. And now try and find somebody who doesn't have a smartphone. You know what I mean? And look at everything when those, when BlackBerries first started coming out, ask somebody, hey, do you think there'll come a time when you don't know your best friend's phone number? It'd be like, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, how would I not know? I dial it all the time. Well, what if the phone's got it saved for you? It's got it on like an auto dial, Well, in case I ever need to call them and I don't have access to that, I'm going to make sure. I don't know anybody's fucking phone number. I'm lucky I know my phone number.
I know yours.
Yeah, I know your phone number.
I still know my friends' numbers from high school.
That's true.
Yeah, that's long-term
Yes.
memory.
But I don't know any of my new friends' phone numbers.
No.
Yeah, and
No.
GPS, like
Oh,
nobody
yeah,
knows
how do
how
you
to
get
get anywhere.
somewhere? Yeah.
It used to be Rand McNally. Yeah, I don't see why we're not headed into an age where it's going to start thinking for us, because
And we're going to be okay with that. There'll be pushback initially, but at some point, would you think that we're going to just accept it as being like another convenience in life?
yeah, because if you don't use it, you're going to get left behind. That's interesting. I was going to ask T, like, what do you see emerging in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, how is AI going to shape businesses? How is it going to change the way that businesses operate? How is it going to change, like, the employment rate, as far as
Yeah.
people's jobs
How
getting
many
taken
people
over?
are necessary?
Well, the dream of AI, like to be just let's just put it up here in lights, like we have in the studio here.
There's a few in here.
Yeah, the dream is for AI to free up human creativity. Okay, for us to have more time to do this right now. This connection that we're having, this time that we're spending, using our creativity and our humanness. I think that's the dream of how AI can be beneficial. I use AI a lot for outlines, for meetings, for work, and I'm just like, hey, create an outline on these 5 topics, and
Because it's a time saver.
it saves me an hour plus, and then I love AI for that. What I really don't love AI for is human resources. How many of us are just want to talk to a person because we just want to return this thing, but we need to talk it through, and instead I'm talking to a computer and I'm getting pissed off.
Will that change, though?
I that's where I worry that's like the direction that it's going, and I'm like, no. There's reasons why humans need to be in these positions, like empathy. You cannot teach. Well, okay, someone's gonna write in and be like, Tia said you
don't think
can't
they will?
teach a
I think
computer.
they will at some point.
I think empathy is very hard to teach, especially because AI, machine learning, they're trained by humans. Most of the humans, again, I'm sure I'm gonna piss off someone,
You
but
say
this is
anything
my
you want.
opinion.
You say anything you want.
A lot of the machines are being trained by dudes in their early 20s. Some of them, I'm sorry, they haven't had sex yet. They don't, like, they're...
Very few life experiences.
Yes. And they're the ones that are training the models that are informing society.
Well, we have to change that as
I've
society.
put out the idea where how many professors and teachers do you hear have a side hustle driving Uber because they don't make enough? You know what? They're the ones that we should be paying to be
great idea.
training the models. You know, you're a professor
It's a great
in
idea.
history and philosophy or whatever. I want them training the machines, and I want that future. Ooh, I brought it back to philosophy, what you started it on. Yes.
Most
Good.
impressive.
Yes, I like it. Well, and that's a great point because I honestly think that is like, you know, you like see these movies, like what was that one movie, like Her, you know what I mean, where like the guy
That
falls
was a
in.
great movie.
It was a great movie, yeah. And like, here's the thing is I do think that like there's enough information out there for like a computer learning program to simulate like human interaction, and honestly for it to potentially be very satisfying for people. You know what I mean? Like they're showing these commercials of people walking around like, now do you just need somebody to talk to? And that's what they're trying to like, and in some ways I feel like condition people to use AI for. But I think that's only really possible because it is possible, because like the information's out there. But like you said, like if it's not being utilized in that way, if they're not activating the resources that are available, then it is just going to be these like kind of mechanical, you know, like projected answers, as opposed to like, you know, a model that could essentially like access like all of these like nuanced human emotions, which I don't know if you can do exactly, but, and I don't know. And that scares me too, because I feel like in some ways, like it could be helpful for people that really do struggle socially, because like it could potentially like give them the opportunity to like learn how to interact without like the fear of rejection. But then at the same time, I think in some ways that's not necessarily good for someone in that boat, because it's like, well, maybe like the thing that helps people like, I don't know, like surpass that fear is just doing the thing.
Plus,
Back to sorry, Jerry.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, back to online dating. I use online dating because I've moved a lot. I've traveled a lot. It's one way for me to meet people and get to know Pittsburgh.
Sure.
You know, but I would say 90% of the people that I meet, and we have like a good little conversation virtually. In person, they are so socially awkward. They are, I mean, I love to just like meet new people, as you know, and talk at barbecues and, you know, be the random plus one. And these are people who are very uncomfortable in actually the human world. And then
ages 30, 35, 28. I mean, is it really? Is that
30s,
age? At that
40s.
age? Really?
and really awkward. And I'm sorry, I'm not very good at filtering, like, but just like awkward. Like
You're at the right place.
I would never go out on a second date with these people.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, what is happening to us that we are becoming so
Awkward.
Yeah.
Dude, I get it. Trust me. Like, it's funny because I've been at like parties and stuff like that where I just feel like like the forced like attempts at like socializing sometimes, like in like group settings, just feel really uncomfortable. And I'm someone that's like rarely uncomfortable like socially, so it's kind of like if it's happening,
It's gotta be pretty bad.
Yeah, if it's happening, I'm like super aware of it, and I'm just like, ugh. But I agree, and it's strange to me that it's happening in like in our age group, because I do
Yeah.
feel like there's no reason for it, because most of us like grew up going to house parties, or you know, if you weren't, I wasn't super popular, you know, growing up, but like, you know, I found the people that were unpopular to spend time with, and that was like how I navigated. But online forums weren't so much an option. They were very new. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I wasn't tech savvy enough, and I don't think I had my first computer until I was like 14 or so. And you know, by then I was already more interested in like, I don't know, drinking and boys. I was like, I'm not going to be home doing that.
Well, what about that? I mean, like, just take like you said, connectivity with people. I mean, I've had my son on the podcast twice, along with Rocco had his son, same age. So I think Austin was 21 and Rocco's son, Gabe, was 20. And they didn't know each other, but they were telling similar stories of their dating experiences, their connectivity experiences. And yeah, some of it was skewed by the goofiness of the pandemic. But the point was that they were being afraid of approaching certain girls because they could potentially be put on blast. You know, if the girl wanted to make fun of their, you know, the insecurity involved with that. And it was really interesting to see. But I was looking at Rocco in our brain. It's total disconnection. We don't get that. Like, him and I would never have any problem talking to anyone. And I don't think we did most of the time in our prior years, but hearing them say that was like it was not terrifying. It was just very sad that there's these walls built up from them meeting new females because they're worried. And I'm sure it's vice versa, but they're worried about, I guess, harassment.
Well, I mean, did you ever hear, I never read it.
Is that what's keeping us separated?
Add this to the list of books that we bring up that we've never read.
Yes, another thing we do here.
Was it Snowden wrote Permanent Record? I can't remember who wrote it. I think it was Snowden. But it's, so the whole idea of the book was basically that, you know, we're living in a society where, you know, there's this permanent record of everything you do. Especially like in adolescence and like, you know, early adulthood, that's like terrifying. Like, think about how, like you say, awkward, but just like, just exactly like, just like the kinds of like things, the kind of stupid things that you do like in those time periods in life, and like how grateful everyone at this table probably is that there is not a permanent record of that time period of your life. You know what I mean? Whereas like now you have these kids growing up in a time where like anything can be caught on video, anything can be like you said, blasted out to like just their social group at large and the world at large. You know, any dumb mistake they make, any like, you know, like any kind of rejection, any kind of just party foul, like stupid thing you do, whatever.
And kids are dying by suicide because of it. Mm-hmm. Like, I was a very awkward teenager, and my parents were, still are, very religious and conservative, and I wasn't allowed to shave. Super. That's terrible. I also wanted to be a lifeguard. I was a swimmer. So try going through lifeguard training and being like on a backboard with hairy legs.
Oh my gosh, that's cruel.
That's not conservative. That's just weird.
I would say that's just cruel.
So I was teased so bad.
I bet.
And I will never forget the freedom I felt when my best friend was like, What's the worst that could happen if you shaved your legs? Like, seriously, what's your dad gonna do? I was like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And like, I remember shaving my legs and just feeling this liberation.
Yeah.
But if there would have been pictures on a cell phone of my hairy legs in my swimsuit in lifeguard training,
mortifying.
Like, I don't know how.
How do you recover from that?
I don't know how if I could have, you know, but.
I
so
get it.
I feel really lucky.
Yeah, no, I think if you ask most people who lived in the before times, right, had a portion of their life in the before times, they're probably damn glad that the ability to have that technology was not around. I know I certainly am. I mean, I graduated high school in '83, and even into '95, the goofy crap I did from '83 to '95, you know, into my mid-20s, I'm glad that technology wasn't there.
But then I also, like, I've had some really rad life experiences. Like, I slept in a Mussolini fort in Rome.
Oh, right.
Like, and it's been taken over by punks, and there's graffiti everywhere. It is the trippiest place. It's called El Forte in Centro Tele in Rome. And I wish I had, like, photos of that. Yeah. Like, I slept in a World War II bunker.
I get it.
You know, like, it was such a trip.
Yeah. We didn't have any phones.
There's no record.
When we went to Rome.
No.
And then we took photos, and we didn't think to take them out of our luggage.
So the
They get
film
X-rayed.
got, yeah. Well, so the
And
one,
I'm an X-ray tech. I
yeah.
should have thought
well,
of
you
that.
you were a very new X-ray tech at the time. You were like,
That's no excuse.
wow, you're right. No, so
you
what?
learned that the first day. Radiation effects for film.
Well,
Day
so
one.
we went to Ireland first, and then we went to Italy second. And so our photos from Rome were better because they were only exposed once on the way home. The ones that we took in Ireland, mostly, yeah. And it sucks because like there's like a photo where like you can see me with like the Canon like yeah, I've got the big ass camera hanging from my neck. I'm like, that's why all these photos look so like, and like they came out, you can see them, but they're so like faded. But it's weird because it's like my memories of that time now like are so much more colored by my memory.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? As opposed to like what I see in front of me. So I don't know. I wonder how that's going to be because I only am going to have like from, I guess, like 30s on probably were like, I don't think I didn't get a smartphone until I was almost 30 because I was someone that held out. I had a tablet and I had a flip phone and I had a desktop at home. And I remember like when I was first starting, like when I first finished college, because I went like a little bit later. I think I was like 28 when I graduated, and that was sort of my setup. I had I had a tablet, a flip phone, and a desktop at home.
Yeah.
So like I did not have it. Like I remember when I got the tablet and like we realized the camera worked, and we're like those people with the huge tablet, like check it out. Like it's like this big. You're like taking pictures.
But back to like on the topic of AI and like how much technology we each have, like my parents only use their cell phone. They do not have a television or a computer. So they do everything. And so their algorithm is very, let's just say, interesting when it comes to news and such like that. And so when we it's like okay, I think having too much tech is one thing, but then having too narrow just one thing, like how does that affect
Your world experience.
Does the technology discourage free thinking?
Yes.
Or does it enhance it?
No. And I think it's something that each one of us hit on when we were talking. People gravitate towards things that feel good. And so, Julie mentioned maybe someone would get over their social awkwardness by interacting with an AI. In most cases, I don't think so, because it's the painful, awkward, cringy moments that you have socially that help you learn to navigate social situations so that you can communicate better, so that you can interact more effectively, so that you can connect with people who are worth connecting with for you.
Right.
Whereas you have an AI program and you just gravitate towards what gives, just like social media. I get that feeder pellet.
Like a drug.
I get that. Yeah, exactly. And that's what we gravitate towards. And that's why I think that whole like personal bubble thing that Tia explained with the person she met at that bar is only going to get worse because...
So we become more polarized as a society.
Well, we're synthesizing reality is what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to go over a friend's house. We're just going to interact on social media. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to tell you about my vacation and show you slides. I'm just going to post it. Like, if I don't post it, did it even really happen mentality?
Yeah.
You know
well,
what
I
I mean?
think there's a lot of youth living with that right now.
Yeah, more and
the
more
reality of that.
people
Like,
are living. And
it's not posted. Did it actually? It didn't happen to me if I don't post it.
And I've brought this up on other shows: augmented reality, virtual reality, the things that are coming. We're just synthesizing reality more and more and putting it in more of a virtual space. And
so, are we being driven to have this available because there is an understanding that there is so much disappointment in the human experience?
That's a really good question.
I'm like, that's painful to acknowledge, but
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think it's the technology is providing us what we never had before, which is you can have exactly what you want, when you want it, how you want it.
One of my favorite poets, authors is Khalil Gibran. And in his book, The Prophet, he talks about, the more pain we experience and heartbreak that grows our hearts so we have a greater capacity to experience love, you know? And
Yeah.
so like these experiences in life, you know, whether it's having hairy legs on a backboard or doing God knows what in Rome, like they flavor the experience so that I learn how to interact with podcast hosts.
Well, and they
you know?
help you have empathy
Yes.
too. Like, because I say I will be the first to admit that I don't think that I am the most empathetic person. Like I think I'm very personable. I think I'm someone that people I know how to make people feel comfortable to open up to me, but I don't actually feel overly empathetic towards people all the time. Like I had to like learn that throughout my lifetime. Like now I do. It's gotten better like in the last few years, I would say, because I made a concerted effort to want to be more empathetic. But I realized like early on that like I think I'm charismatic enough that like people trust me, and so like people like feel comfortable around me. And it's helped me. Like I was a massage therapist before. Like I'm really good at like being like very personal with people, but I also like I noticed I didn't really feel empathy for people until like I got a little bit older. And I do think that some of that is just like because there was like a time that I had like enough like traumatic experiences when I was younger that I like found a way like to stop experiencing them or like shutting down or like blocking out emotions and all that kind of stuff. And like when you dampen your own emotions, it makes it very hard to experience like emotions for other people. You know what I mean?
Does charisma trump empathy? And can we use that in training the AI models?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not recommending it. That's all.
These are very charismatic killer robots that you've created. Bang up job.
I'm just being honest. I feel like it's these are things that I've realized in post. You know what I mean? It was kind of like I was like, how did I like? It's not like I had so many friends, but like, how did I develop it such a like a wide social circle if I wasn't like that empathetic towards people, like if I didn't feel that empathetic towards people? And it's like, oh, like some of that's charisma, some of that is just knowing how to make people feel comfortable. And I think that like I have a lot of kindness and like genuine care for people, but that's different than empathy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's very different. And I don't know really what specifically made me realize, but it was like enough life experiences kind of like in the last, you know, we'll say like 5-ish years, like brought it to my attention that I was like, oh, like that, like specifically empathy, like that's not like something I'm particularly strong in. And it was
okay, let me ask you a question. Do you feel, well, think about it for a second before you answer. Do you think that maybe, because you just said 5-ish years, that's for 5-ish years you've been doing this, and the idea of maybe verbalizing and expressing inner feelings and opinions and so forth, do you think that has helped you?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been in therapy for about that long too.
We sent her to therapy. See what's in store for you.
Therapy gives you a great vocabulary, let me tell you.
Oh yeah, like yeah, definitely.
That sure backfired on me, didn't it?
Well, I mean, it kind
You
of
did
like,
walk right into it.
I did.
I will say that like both of those things like happened around the
Sorry.
same time. And I think that like everyone's on a personal journey, and I would have told you 10 years ago that I was on a personal journey. And in some ways, like I probably was, but it wasn't the journey of developing empathy. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of journeys you can go on, and I don't think that any one is better than the other. But I think
some of them are better than others.
Sure, okay, maybe. But I mean, they're all
I've been on some pretty shitty journeys.
Are we talking about mushrooms again?
objectively better or worse or more enjoyable or worse, but it's
some
more
of those.
it's also about like what's the end result, like the things that, again, back to the idea that like the least enjoyable experiences that we have are oftentimes the ones that build the most, not just character, but like those things have been the things that have given me way more ability to be empathetic. Like some of the most painful experiences I've had in life gave me the ability to like experience empathy. And I think for like a huge chunk of my adulthood, especially because a lot of my like youth was kind of painful, I like avoided experiencing pain. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean that I didn't have painful experiences. It just means like when they happened, I was like, okay, I'm here and now I'm not.
I get that.
You know what I mean? But you do that long enough, and then there's like the ability to like kind of like I said, like really experience like actual empathy is just not there.
But I think, I've definitely had loads of trauma. It's great for empathy making, yay. But I think the other thing in life that has really given me empathy is traveling. And I've lived in every region of our country, and living in Texas, living in DC, living in Washington State, California, living in Pittsburgh. I can find something in common with almost everyone
Really?
that I meet. Yeah.
That's very good.
And I think that goes, again, why being in person, experiencing things is so important.
But you got to want it, though.
Yes,
what
you do.
What you just said
Yes, you do.
is it's like you came to that conclusion because you looked for it. I mean, think about how many of society is running around that can't say what you just said because they're not looking for commonality.
I think our country would be such a different country if we mingled with each other. Part of why I moved to Texas is I'm a West Coast girl, originally from Seattle, lived in California for most of my adult life. And we talk so much shit about Texas. It's just, in California, you talk shit about Texas. That's what you do.
Oh, they talk shit about you guys, too.
Oh, yes, I know. And part of why I moved to Texas was I was like, wait, I'm talking shit about a place that I don't know.
Right.
And so I'm like, I need to figure out what is this Texas. And I lived there. And you know what?
We're at in Texas.
I lived in Dallas, but my work took me to Houston and Austin.
Okay.
So
Austin's its own little animal in itself there. It's not the Texas experience, I don't think.
But I was in Fort Worth and Houston,
for sure.
And also got to know friends that had family in East Texas.
Oh, right on.
I mean, I was all over, and there was some colorful vocabulary. That's all I'm going to say. It was College Station, again, all very different and interesting. Yeah. And I got to actually meet people and learn. And Texas is hot and humid, and I have so much respect for people that can live in that climate. But it got me, I was becoming kind of flaky living in California, and Texas got me back to some kind of, honestly, some values that I had let slide. And my hot water heater died one day, and I did not have a lot of money, and I was like, shit. It died as in water was all over the floor kind of death.
Been there.
And this guy, he didn't know me at all. He was friends of a friend, and because I was her friend, he came and helped me. And he would only take a 12-pack of Budweiser and a brisket in payment. He was like, I'm not going to charge you anything else. And you know
specific.
What? We're now friends.
Is that like a Southern thing though in the United States? Is that do you find it that's not
Yes.
not exact, but I mean, does it tend to be a Southern hospitality thing?
I'm sold on Southern hospitality. I have had so many strangers go out of their way to be kind. Also, that I've had people say "bless your heart" to me a lot. And if you know what "bless your heart" means, it is.
You got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, that's kind of the nice way of telling someone they're kind of an asshole, isn't it?
I think I deserved it in pretty much every instance. But I learned so much being in Texas, and I'm so grateful to these people that adopted me and taught me. And sorry, that was a longer tangent than I meant it to be.
No, it's good.
But it was so important.
So you learned as part of your, through experience.
I love to stir the pot, and I will say that Texans and Californians have so much in common.
They probably do.
And they're like, what? No. And I'm like, yeah, because Californians are like, I got everything I need here, and I'm the best state. I don't need to leave. Texans are like, I got everything I need here. We're the best state. I don't need to leave. And me, I'm like, I need to leave. I'm too curious. I want to move around. Yeah.
That was something that one of the teachers I really connected with at high school when I was getting ready to graduate. He was a history teacher. He said, if I could tell you one thing, just get the fuck out of here. He didn't say that exactly, but that was kind of the gist of it. He was like, go to other places, go to other areas, talk to people, see how other people live. And I've only lived here, but we've traveled around a good bit, and I think that is important. I think whether we're onto this synthetic reality or not, we get stuck in our own little bubbles and in our own little perceptions of the world. And I think, that's very uncomfortable when you confront the idea that your sight is limited, that you maybe don't know as much as you think you do. I think that's what it comes down to, bringing it back to some of the technology stuff we've been talking about, is that, if it's uncomfortable, it's probably going to be a growing and a learning experience. And having all this technology. It allows us the opportunity to live some kind of life without really going through the trials of life.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and that's not good. I can tell you.
No, I don't think for the human experience it's good.
I can tell you as a recovering alcoholic, anything that constantly keeps you from the consequences of your own actions is not a good thing.
Well, don't you think a lot of society is wired that way now? I mean, even if it actually doesn't, the belief that it should.
I think that's the direction that we're heading, to be honest. And I think it's not just technology. Like, I don't know. There's something strange that keeps happening to each generation that, I don't know. I feel like we, in general, just become a little less real. We become a little less connected to the world and a little less connected to each other.
Sounds like you need to go to Texas.
Maybe. Maybe.
That is one place I've never been.
It's probably real. I can see it getting very real.
I've been
Texas.
in Texas multiple. I have not been to Austin. I've been to Houston. Too humid in Houston for me, man. Houston is humid. A little drier, I think, in Fort Worth and Dallas, wouldn't you say?
It's
hot.
It's humid, but the art scene and the food scene.
There's a lot of money down there.
I've heard of that too. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, but I think, it's funny. I think the fact that Austin, because of a lot of the West Coast transplants, of notableness. Is that a word? No. Of notary. No, that's not a word either.
Noteworthy?
Not capacity. Noteworthy. Good. West Coast transplants coming to Texas are all congregating. The entertainers, especially in Austin. I think it's healthy that in Austin there's this own little ecosystem of different kinds of philosophies and so forth. It's what the state needs. I mean, there's pushback, but you know what? It needs that. It can't have, it's like, I know for a fact, and I'd love to hear how you think about this. I don't believe for a minute that every single county in California is left view. I mean, I have family that live in Walnut Creek, California. And that's a northern suburb of I think it's northern of San Francisco. And there's a different philosophy all throughout the state. There's a predominance, but there's a different philosophy. Same thing with Oregon. Same thing with Washington. We label so much in this country, especially when it's philosophy driven. Take the politics out of it, just philosophy, lifestyle philosophy. We label and we not demonize, but in some ways the way we think, we demonize large blocks of people just because we believe these stereotypes affect large swaths of the public. We got to get away from that.
Yeah,
got to get away from that.
We're getting to the point where we don't celebrate our differences very well.
Well, we don't even recognize them. You know what I mean? We recognize them if they create some kind of offense toward us. But in terms of the curiosity thing, it's like, be curious instead of pissed off, and you be surprised what you're going to learn. I mean,
sure.
It's you can't do podcasts if you don't have that kind of mentality. Now, I know there's a lot of echo chamber podcasts out there that sell a certain bent. But I think if you're going to have an open forum podcasting, you have to go in with a level of curiosity, and it's really wonderful, man. I mean, that's the lesson for me in 5 years, because I was more closed-minded when I started. I had no intention of doing like a single philosophy show, but I was saying what I probably didn't believe. I want to have this open concept and invite all kinds of people from different backgrounds and so forth. And when I actually did it, I was like, by keeping my mouth shut and listening, I pulled all kinds of good stuff out of that,
Sure.
Well, back to my dating history.
Keeping it interesting.
I was living in Northern California before I moved to Pittsburgh, and I dated a sheriff's deputy. Let's just say that we're a little bit different he has a Let's Go Brandon t-shirt. We'll just put it that way. I do not. I will just say that. And at first he was like, we were attracted to each other, but he's like, liberals can't form, like, have a logical conversation. I was like, oh really? We can't. And but we actually started talking to each other, and by listening to each other, we were able to find consensus on topics like guns, for instance. I'm like, yes, I'm a liberal. I was also in the military. Like, all of us have these different pieces of us that make up our story.
Of course.
And if you actually sit down, have a beer with someone, or not a beer with someone and have a real conversation. Like we had genuine affection for each other.
Absolutely.
And we're able to find consensus. And I challenge everyone to do that.
Absolutely right. Yeah, that's Rocco Cozza's his master philosophy. How he lives his life is like because he believes that if you take the 100 people, like 97% of them, 97 out of 100, all kind of want the same thing. Safety for their kids, a nice place to live, enough food to eat. We kind of all want the same stuff. And then the outlying stuff is where the differences are, and they tend to be polarized. And that some people get so charged up by the outlying
Well, that's what the
philosophies,
media is constantly shoving in our
and
faces.
and then
the
they
most extreme voices.
Exactly
on either
right.
Side.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue that. I mean,
yeah.
it's. But again, you never, like you said, you never find out what those common things are if you don't start talking with each other. And to the earlier point, this is effing killing it, or has already killed it. It just seems like this stuff we're doing tonight doesn't happen on a daily basis. I just entered the workforce after 25 years of not working for a company, being on my own. And I don't have a lot of people around me, but I have enough, in the two locations to observe the structure of the organization and the hierarchy and all the political backstabbing crap that goes on. And it's just like, holy shit, man. It's like I walked out of corporate America in 99, and all these past 25 years didn't happen, and I stepped right back in. And again, it's the same bullshit. We haven't learned from anything. If anything, it's worse. And it's like, really? I mean, but now it's politically driven. Whereas in '99, I don't think the caustic nature of the way we looked at people, wasn't done by R&D. Now I think R&D plays a part of the potential caustic nature when you're summing up who you can be cool with and who you can't, which is just fucking crazy to me. That's there. That wasn't there 25 years ago, but. To me, it's like we just don't talk to each other. We just don't talk to each other. And maybe that was the difference in '99. People were kind of like going to the lunchroom and BSing, going out to lunch and staring at each other and talking and going to happy hour, and there was no phones. You were just talking and
you were
drinking.
just kind of stuck with each other.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would have found my wife at the time or any if I really was walking around most of my day with this, like really made it as the core thing. I mean, I don't know how I would have made it, man. I just don't.
Yeah.
I could see myself succumbing to this. If I was 20 years younger, and really having this enter my life, I can see myself like this all day. I'm not too proud to admit that.
I mean, like I've been off work, on maternity leave for a couple of months now, and I'm getting ready to go back to work, and like I had to remember to remind myself to be present in my life during this time, because I'm spending a lot of time home with a baby, and so there is a lot of hands. I keep joking to tell everybody this is way more hands-on than I thought it would be.
What did you expect?
No, that's been the joke that I've been telling, because obviously whatever. But so there isn't a lot of time to just screw off and scroll anyway. But it did make me realize that a big chunk of my just kind of mental bandwidth does end up going towards just checking my Facebook, checking my Instagram, checking my email, and this kind of loop that you go through on your phone. And it's part of it is part of life now in this weird way that it's
well, you choose it to be part of your life.
It is. And the things that I wanted to do with my life. Okay. So before I was doing promotions, and then I got my real estate license. I can't just live in a bubble. Part
Correct.
of me, when I was younger, I wanted chickens. I wanted, I have Pinterest boards that I created in 2010 that were what I was going to do. And I was yeah, I want these chickens, and we're going to move out of the city eventually, and this is going to be the thing, and yada, yada, yada. And it's just not the direction that my life went. And God bless people that do. My goddaughter, who's 25, has a bunch of chickens now and just got off Facebook. And she did it because she has a 9-year-old son. And she was yeah, I'm seeing him seeing social media, and he's thinking things that he shouldn't think yet. You know what I mean? She's and it's not good for him. And if her and his dad set an example of not being on it, then it gives him no reason to kind of interact in that way. And like for a 25-year-old to kind of like come to that realization, I was impressed with her. It's not what
But
I'm doing.
I think that's the exception, not the
Absolutely.
And that's the shame, but that's the exception.
Right.
You have those moments, you hear stories like that, but they're not the
No,
majority of people.
I agree. And like, I think that, you know, for myself, it's like I did make a choice however many years ago, but basically like I wasn't going to go, you know, live on a farm and have chickens, that I probably was going to be a little bit more integrated into the world. And part of that, like in my world, is, you know, having some kind of presence on social media, some kind of awareness of it. But I still have to put myself in check now that it doesn't like.
Well, how do you control your social media? Like, do you have controls you put in? Do you have controls? Do you have? How do you manage it? Like, do you have to cognitively tell yourself, "No, I'm not gonna."
Oh, I can tell.
I'm not gonna go down the deep. I'm not gonna.
I can tell. Once I scroll for more than like 5, maybe 10 minutes, if I just need to veg out, I start getting pissed in small ways. I start getting when at first it's like a nice, relaxing thing. I'm just like mindlessly scrolling, and eventually I run into something where I'm like, I start narrowing my eyes. You know what I mean? And I'm still scrolling, and then I can feel the brow furrowing. Like, why would you say that? That's so fucking stupid. You're probably an asshole. Just like you said, how we don't really know anybody on our friends list. And I noticed, like, after about 10, 15 minutes, I start doom scrolling. And it doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? Whatever, like, marginal benefit that I was getting out of it, even if it was just vegging out and getting to relax for a minute, after about 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, it starts to become toxic, you know? Maybe that's my algorithm.
How do you manage it?
So I've thought about getting off Facebook and even Instagram. The amount of content that is suggested versus the content that I follow drives me up the wall. I would pay to not have the amount of suggested content that I do. Mm-hmm. But why I keep it is because the amount of friends I have in other countries. And so, like how we've been talking, you know, this last hour about the importance of being in person, it's not always possible, you know. My friend in Berlin, like that's one way that we stay in each other's life is through these digital platforms. But I've also found that when I set my phone in another room, or now I just try to leave my ringer off most of the time, and then that somehow, when I don't hear pings of me getting texts, then I also don't start scrolling in my Instagram, and I just set it aside. But I also give myself like a half hour, you know, here or there to just look at recipes, you know, and just not beat myself up about that. But it's hard. I know that like I forget what it's called. Like the addiction is real though, because sometimes it's 100%. Just like it's almost like your phone's like touch me, touch me.
Yep.
And that's. Yeah.
Don't you love you need to do something on your phone? Like, you know what I mean? You need to use an app, or I use mine for work. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
And then you pick it up, and it's been like a couple minutes. You're like, this isn't why I picked up my phone. You just start dicking off with your phone, and you had something that you had actually meant to do with it.
Yeah. Like it is a tool, but like it's just it's this window.
It's
to
very
all
distracting.
This other
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
I know.
It's terribly distracting.
And I like to start my day listening to like the NPR podcast. It's part of my routine. But I've started now where I'll do like every other day where I don't listen to the news or anything. And I just kind of stay in just a calm bubble.
Do you get enjoyment out of the news?
I like listening to the NPR podcast. I used to listen to like CNN morning news or just more broader, different news sources. I do not enjoy that anymore. I do like to know what's going on in the world. Like this morning, we heard everything from Aleppo, Syria, to what was going on in Europe, to something domestic in the States. I like that to know, just have at least an idea of what's going on globally. It makes my world bigger.
Yeah.
But to just like turn on the pundits who are like, oh, those, fucking Republicans, oh, Biden, da da da. Like, how is that helping things right now? How is that helping my day? It's not.
Right.
Yeah. It's not
and
expanding your worldview.
I'm not learning anything.
Right. Like you said.
No.
Right.
Yeah, I picked up breaking points from listening to Rogan because like they had, a Republican and a Democrat newscaster, and it's like an internet show, and they would report together, and so it was always kind of like a very non-biased show. At least that's what I perceived it as initially. I will say post-election, it has been, I have not enjoyed listening to it as much. And I don't know if it's because, like, I just feel like there's so much controversy around, like, what is happening right now that people can't help but, like, kind of, like, leak their opinion into it. It's not as, like, it's not as much, like, straight reporting.
No, it's a very human thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's fine. Like, I don't mind that.
It shouldn't happen if you say you're not going to be that way.
No, exactly. And that's kind of where, like, I'm at the point now where, like, I will sometimes, like, I agree with you. Like, I want to know what's happening globally. And a lot of times, like, if I was kind of watching it for, like, you know, a less biased opinion of what was happening with different conflicts overseas and all that stuff, it was, like, kind of like a useful tool to be like, okay, I don't want to be totally ignorant. Like, I don't want to be someone that doesn't have any idea of what's going on. Go ahead.
I got to watch how I say this. So, because I have the exact same argument. What you just said, I can echo that. I would say the same. If you asked me the same question, I would say the same thing. But are we just using that as an excuse?
To be on our phones, or?
No, we're finding, even if it's causing anxiety and angst, are we finding news entertaining as a form of entertainment? And we like to publicly tell people, oh, you know, it's just terrible. And I wish for the days of Walter Cronkite and all that. But the ratings don't prove that.
My big thing is, if I'm watching the news or listening to the news, tell me what is happening. Don't tell me what to think about it. Don't tell me how to feel about it.
You'll never have that again.
Well, I think it depends on your news source. I like independent news sources.
And give me an example.
There's one called I don't pay attention to their names. But there's one called 1440. Mm-hmm. It's basically like emails that you can subscribe to, and it takes some of the editorializing.
So the written, but in terms of like a verbal show, like you say you listen to NPR, right? Then you like NPR because I'm going to guess it probably has a tinge of a liberal slant to it. Not overtly, but NPR is funded by taxpayer dollars. It's always had a liberal, anti-conservative bent to most of the content on there that's politically in nature. So even though you are right, it's more objective, and I would agree with you. But I think that there's an element of hearing things you may agree with as keeping you going there, as opposed to maybe CNN or Fox or anything else in there that is going to show you things you know. It's a human nature. I know I do it. I mean, I just don't know if we really want totally unbiased news. Do we really just want to read facts? Because it goes back to the original question in the beginning. Do we trust what we see? The word facts meant something when we were young. What does facts mean today? It's someone else's interpretation of reality. And we either subscribe to these set of facts or these set of facts. And then we base our reality around it.
Well, that's how we've been conditioned.
Which is nuts, which is really scientifically insane. That's how we've been doing.
That's how we've been conditioned. I don't think it's inherent in human nature to want someone else to manipulate and influence the way that we perceive the world around us. I don't believe
you don't think?
I think it starts early on in the education system, the way that children are taken and just. I feel like we're taught in a very specific way, and there's all kind of different intelligences. Like I was reading, it was a while back actually, about how there's more than just one intelligence that you can measure with an IQ test.
Mm-hmm.
There's spatial intelligence, which a ballerina or an athlete has to be keen on.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, there was at least 5 or 6 of them, and this was in college, which was not yesterday for me. You know what I mean? But it's the idea that not everybody learns the same. Mm-hmm. So teaching every child the same is fitting them into this square peg, and a lot of us just never get outside of it. We're not told to be inspired. We're not encouraged to be inspired.
Well, that's the human.
We're encouraged to sit down and shut the fuck up and listen to what the teacher is saying, or you're going to get in trouble.
Facts.
And can we do that? Like, do we need some structure? We absolutely do. But I don't know. I just feel like we are conditioned from an early age in order to accept, to a certain point, being manipulated.
Well, wasn't it that that the original school day was actually meant to prepare kids for
the
factory
factories.
works?
I think so.
Yeah, something so.
I think so.
And now we're still kind of using the same schedule.
Probably.
You know what I mean? And I do think that it's kind of like what you talk. I know you've talked about like entrepreneurs and stuff like that. It's just like I think in general, number one, not everyone's an entrepreneur anyway, so not everyone's going to have that drive and like that kind of, you know, spark or whatever. But I do think, like, by and large, the system that we're like plugged into discourages creative thought, even though they would say that they don't, that they would say they, but it like, yeah, exactly. Like, just like the very nature of how things are taught, the way that, you know, even just the whole idea that, like, you know, when you start school and you're 5 and you have to sit still, sit in a desk, you get half an hour to go outside, now sit still the rest of the day. It's just like, it's mind numbing.
I had a teacher, I think it was in 10th grade, maybe not. Anyways, 8th grade. Yeah, I think 8th. And she was super experimental. So, for instance, she decided we were going to learn how the national park system was formed in the United States. She assigned us each some obscure politician, like, I don't even remember any of their names. Mm-hmm. And we had to learn what they argued in Congress. Mm. And so we learned all of these different viewpoints and the whole conversation that went in to our national parks being formed. And it was so interesting. Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, we've all grown up with the parks. Yeah, there's parks. Well, there was a point when there before there were parks. Right. And she did this on a couple different topics. And it's, you know, obviously stuck. Yeah. But it was so interesting because it made us part of the process. Absolutely. And we had to learn, like, we just had to learn the different perspectives and all of the full story, kind of.
Instead of just all these, like, facts.
And not just reading a paragraph in a history textbook.
Yeah, and I think that also gives insight to the fact that the government, aside from legislation and policy, it's just a bunch of people. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you were talking about how the parks were formed, and you had to look at it from all these different perspectives when they were doing it. Like, I don't know, I think a lot of us look at government like it's just this big dinosaur, this big institution, and I think it's easy to forget that, look, these are people just like us, maybe not just like us, but that these are people all with different, I don't even use it in a way that's derogatory, but with a different agenda and a different viewpoint. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the process of government is hashing out all these different ideas, and then, okay, something becomes law, or the park system becomes the way it is. Because I don't always think about government that way. I'm like, it's just this big entity that wants to fuck me. Mm-hmm. Every year.
Isn't that, what was that? What is government? Like, was it a cartoon or something?
How the bill becomes a law? That was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that. Like, yeah, that.
I think it still happens that way. It should.
Yeah.
Well, I used to be more involved in policy, and I was a very active. I was very active in the veteran space and improving.
I read that too.
Life for active duty military and veterans, and so a lot of the legislation that was put forward, and including what Biden finally signed into law last year, changes to help people in the military that have been sexually assaulted. That was in the works for almost a decade. Like a lot of what informed the lawmakers was our stories and us going and talking to them and explaining like everything from a white paper and a policy perspective, and also sharing, this was my experience in the military, and this is why things need to be different for people who come after me. And so when I think the important thing to think about behind legislation and these different rules and changes is a lot of it is informed by story, you know, but the thing that's scary is my personal story is important, and there's thousands of people who have stories unfortunately very similar to mine, but at the same time we have to also have a macro picture. Yeah. Like there's the big picture and the little picture, and too much of either is, again, what's kind of just fucking us all up, you know?
No, that's a great point, because you get too much of the macro and you're marginalizing individual voices, but you focus too much on the granular level and you don't always get the wider view of whatever issue it is you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And we can see examples of both of those in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, you can see where people's whims have been elevated to, you know, that should be a law of the land on a whim. We also seen the majority viewpoint run over, compromised demographics too. It's like you see it all the time. It's like it's almost like proportionality is not taken. I don't know how to say it. In one regard, you want proportionality to be correct. In another regard, proportionality can be very dangerous, especially if it's a mob mentality in viewpoint. Because the compromised demographics within that group are fucked. So how do you equate that? And you would hope that the FBI and not the FBI, the Justice Department would, rise to the occasion there. So the system I think works if it's executed correctly. But the problem is humans are very flawed beings, and it's like, and that's where I was going with that was, do we want to be entertained by our news? Has the news changed in the past 20, 25 years that we, even if we don't want it, we kind of expect it? People literally lay on their couch and watch Fox or CNN or MSNBC, or they'll watch a series of news shows as entertainment.
Because people
they'll do it every day.
People enjoy being angry.
Yeah, and
most of us won't cop to it, but
how did this
go
happen?
online.
How did this happen? How did this happen?
I don't think that's new because
last 30 years it's new.
I don't know if it's I would say just in general, one of the things that they realized with algorithms on social media is the things that make people angry, the things that fire people up are the things that are going to keep people engaged.
Yeah.
So you could try, someone could say all I want is puppies and rainbows. But
that's what I mean. No one wants that.
No, and honestly, I don't think that's. I think human nature is, we don't mean to, but in some ways we do thrive on conflict. And if you think about it, all the great stories, the great literature, it's usually some,
a struggle of some kind.
Yeah, and some big character arc, and something happens, and this person overcomes something or whatever. And so the idea that in any category, whether it's news or what kind of television we enjoy, even if it's entertainment, I don't think it's kind of how they would talk in the first Matrix when they talk about how they try, when they were plugging everyone into the Matrix, they were trying this utopian society and everyone rejected it. That people basically we as human beings don't actually want this perfect unending.
Yeah,
utopia.
we define our reality by struggle and misery.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want bliss.
True.
I don't know that it has to be misery, but I do think that that's sort of what we equate it with, and I think that, and again, this circles.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think this circles back to some of what we're talking about as far as avoiding conflict and avoiding these uncomfortable experiences. Is that we don't like to grow, but it's necessary. And you know what I mean? And I think that whenever you resist that, there's either a certain type of stagnation that'll happen, or, you become kind of out of sync with the world around you when you don't grow and adapt the way that you're meant to.
Yeah,
and I think
you miss out on necessary coping skills.
Right. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in the macro. If you talk about what's happening with just, all this crazy stuff with technology and all stuff. I think that as a species, maybe there's a certain type of maybe we're evolving in certain ways and kind of growing with all this technology, and we're accelerating in all these different ways. But there are these fundamental experiences that we're kind of bypassing. And, in some ways, maybe that need for entertainment in the news, or that kind of need for struggle and conflict online or whatever is this kind of deformed way of us trying to have this experience that we should be having as these growth milestones that we're not having.
What if we're just bored?
I mean, that's part of it too.
Well, I think what you're talking about is news as entertainment, as dystopic entertainment. So one of the interesting back again when I was doing. I was recording a deposition before the California legislature, again as part of the process of improving conditions for military and veterans. And this was right at the beginning of comments for online news articles, and trolls just ate me up. And I have to say, I was one of the first public sexual assault advocates to have their full name and face public like that. And these trolls said the worst, most awful things in the comments. And it took hours for my bosses to get the newspaper to shut down the comments to get these guys to stop trolling me. And I bring this up because when we're talking about watching Fox, CNN, Rachel Maddow, whatever, and we're getting we're commenting, talking about these newscasters or what people are saying or what people are doing or trolling or commenting on Threads or X or whatever, we're using this as like gladiatorial entertainment. You don't have to agree with me, but I was actually out there doing something. I was testifying before the legislature, and we need to get more active with our politics. If you don't like it, then write your congressman, call your congressman or congresswoman, go in person. But just trolling or just doom scrolling or watching the news, that's not life. That's not living. That's not helping anything. And I challenge everyone, no matter what you believe in, to actually get involved and be a part of this life, so fuck the trolls.
No, it's like those trolls are the bottom feeders of society, and they were probably they were certainly around before the internet. They just didn't have a mechanics to make themselves heard as much. I mean, it's just that segment of society there's always been a very low rent, low class segment of society from a behavioral standpoint.
Additionally, I think Tia made a great point. It's not just trolls, though. It's people who think that they do things online and they're doing something.
Where did the delusion come from?
Because we want to believe it. It's easy. I can live my life the easy way without all these difficult things and getting my ass up off the couch.
Okay.
Like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
People who think that they're online being an activist for whatever cause that they're trying to champion, you're an angry typist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even if you're not trolling someone and being an asshole, like, in my opinion, I get, like, people are like, well, you need to make noise and you can do that online. And there's something to that. But there's a big difference between doing that and going to a demonstration or going to a meeting or just like you said.
Or writing an essay.
Or writing to your congressman and saying, or congresswoman and saying, I don't agree with this and this is my opinion and this is what I think. I don't know. We're just so, and I haven't been to Texas recently, but I do feel we're a little more distant from the elements in our life that affect our lives. And I think government is a big example of that.
But as long as we believe that we are too separated and can't do anything and get apathetic, then we're just going to keep doom scrolling and not do anything about it. I mean, it's argued that that Texas is purple now, and I think more states should be purple.
Mm-hmm.
Get out there, like get involved. Like I moved there, and I love that I've lived in Texas and I've lived in Pennsylvania, and I feel like my vote matters because these states, there's so many different opinions or, and that's exciting to me that maybe I can be a part of positive change. And I think with people that believe that, oh, my voice doesn't matter or I'm just going to live vicariously through whatever fucking pundit is on the television really, is that what you want to do with your life?
I couldn't agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. Two things here. Let me comment to that, and then I want to ask you one last question. We'll wrap it up because I know we've got to get out of here by 6 today. We've made heroes out of politicians and politically famous people. We've made heroes, and where that wasn't on a broad scale part of society decades prior. It just wasn't. I mean, you want to look, admirably toward your president or your governor and so forth, but you did that out of respect for the office. That's how I think a lot of society was raised. Not recently, but now we have made them celebrities, and it's really disconcerting because I don't even know how we define celebrity anymore, but we've included politicians as celebrities now. And the talking heads that talk about those celebrities are celebrities in their own right. And it's really not healthy. They are entertainers. Celebrities and entertainment. We're tantalized by the whole thing. right? The question I had for you was, and I guess this is my opinion. The question is it all just feeding into human laziness, that life just gets easier and easier? I have to take less action. I don't want to go to a protest. It's just easier to sit online and comment if I want to and feel like I did something. Is the idea that technology is going to continue to make our life easier and easier and easier and feed into that lazy component, which is probably in most humans? And is society going to keep going in this direction and thus, through that process, give in to the technology? It's like it very is similar to that Disney movie 8-10 years ago where everything was done for the character, like he was living in a cartoon. Everything was in
Wally.
Was it Wally?
They lived on the ship and they all
everything
really,
and they were
got
all
really fat.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was the idea of sloth was
Wally.
big in there. But I mean, is that really not what's ahead? I mean, don't you see everything just getting easier and just playing into everything from technology changing utensils and the way we cook, the way everything has to be easier, solve a problem. Was the problem really ever there? No, it's a human activity, but we're going to solve it because you don't have to put that much effort in to do this or that. I think we're constantly moving toward lazy inertia, the lazy being that we all have. I'm not saying it's predominant in everybody, but it's there. And I think that we're going to use technology in a way to make life just non-participatory, and it's just going to be very easy to exist.
I think a bigger issue is fear rather than laziness. Because laziness, I mean, I think just about everybody, except for maybe my dad, who's so fucking type A, you would not believe. But I think all of us, I mean, who doesn't want to do something easier? You know what I mean? Especially if it saves you time, like Tia was saying with the AI program. But that's not, I don't know that laziness is like inherent in people, but there are certain things that are, and one of them.
You don't think that?
No, not necessarily. I think that's a habit.
You give the average human a choice of doing something.
Look at a young kid and find a lazy one. They're fucking crazy. They're bouncing off the walls. We get to a point where it's just easier to be inactive and to be sedentary, and some of us choose that. And I think in a lot of ways it stems from fear. Just like they say anger is a secondary emotion, it stems from fear. Fear is deeply rooted in us, you know what I mean? As instinctual animals, like you don't survive very long without fear, you know? I think it is fear more than something like laziness that leads people down a path where they're not living their life anymore, because it's hard to face your fears. And it's easy to live in, I'm going to throw that term out there again, a synthesized reality where you can have synthesized interactions where maybe even you have an AI bot online girlfriend rather than risking rejection and going through the difficult, painful part of putting yourself out there for another human being in order to like maintain your relationship and actually have it work out. Like, fear is a big thing. You know, it's a big element in a lot of our lives, and I think some of the biggest struggles are overcoming your fears.
I think we, you know, we're talking about cartoons, talk about the 60s. They're how they thought the 2000s were going to be. You know, they thought it was going to be the Jetsons. They thought it was going to be 2001: A Space Odyssey. You know, that average families were going to have a robot maid, you know. We have to accept that is not our future. I've heard that Bill Gates' house has some really tricked out,
He's had
very
it for like
cool.
10, 15 years. Yeah.
You know, but for the average human, most of us, you know, I work multiple jobs. Most of us have a side hustle because you know what? The average person, life is rough right now. We don't have robot maids at home, and that is our future. And you know, we need to accept that. And I think because with the amount of dependence on reality television, we can live life vicariously through these people on our televisions with their penthouses in Manhattan or whatever, instead of looking in the mirror and being like, no, actually my reality is that I have to work job number 2 tomorrow. You know, that's my reality. And one of the things that I say over and over again is, you know, don't bitch about something, change it, do it. Like, that has informed most of my life, is not just being an observer, But if I don't like something about it, then I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to change. I'm going to move somewhere else. I'm going to do a different job. I'm going to learn a new skill, learn a new language, be involved in the AI governance process. Like, we have to stop living vicariously through other people or living in the world that we were sold or that we thought it was going to be or that we wanted.
How about the imaginary, our own imaginary world?
No, we have to accept what's here, and if you don't like it, then fucking change it.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
I don't know that I could say it better. I honestly, because I really think that like a lot of, it's like, this is an AA thing, but like acceptance is the answer to all my problems. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like, I think what a lot of people are running from is we're looking around and, you know, maybe we're not liking what we're seeing, whether it's our own personal life, whether it's the world at large. And instead of, like you said, like kind of like looking at like, well, how can I participate? Like, how can I engage? How can I be involved in the process? Like, I'm just not going to look at the things I don't like. I'm going to like put myself in an echo chamber. I'm only going to interact with people that agree with me. I am going to sit on my couch.
Well, that's easier.
Again, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean is like, I don't think, I've been watching a lot of like Seinfeld reruns lately.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, so much fun. And like they would talk about how Elaine was like the queen of conflict. I don't necessarily feel like you have to be like someone out there searching for conflict, but I do think like it's hard to put yourself out there and learn a new skill, like getting my real estate license, like after 40, like definitely not the easiest thing I've ever done. While I was pregnant, like going through my first sale, like literally like trying to do like manage all that and feeling like I had no idea what I was doing while I was working a full-time job in healthcare. Like, you know, these things are like, life is sometimes hard and like, you know, it's not the fun, easy thing to do to like admit that, you know, you don't know exactly what you're doing. But it is kind of the fastest path to growth to like put yourself in an uncomfortable situation intentionally.
It's liberating.
Yeah.
When I lived in Mexico, I had to learn a whole different way of like thinking and doing something and like laugh at myself every day and realize I was going to be wrong every day. And it doesn't matter how much of a perfectionist I am. I'm going to probably be wrong because I'm learning a new country and customs and everything like that. And you know what? That grew me.
Absolutely right.
And you can't do that if you're living in a virtual world. You have to get out there and experience it. No.
Yeah, and then the virtual world scares me not because I'm afraid of it, just what it requires or what little it requires of humans to be absorbed by it. And we're not even there yet. It's still, you know, this is still reality. This table, us here is still reality, but at some point, maybe not in our lifetime.
We'll be holograms sitting here.
Well, the virtual
That's
world.
not that far away.
No, I
The
would say
virtual
that
world
actually-
will take over importance. You know, like when you know
It's already happened.
They're selling.
Yeah.
You can buy cardigan sweaters for your avatar. I mean, this is
Okay.
insane.
I want to take a hard left though. Like, we've all said similar things. What do you think is the thing that you can do aside from just doing the difficult thing, like to live in that real world? You know what I mean? To face those fears. Because you were like, if you don't like something, change it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Rather than sitting around bitching about it. What are like the most important things to you?
To change?
Yeah. Like all the things that we've kicked around and said, well, this sucks and that sucks, and we're living in an increasingly digital world and we're getting apathetic. Like,
I think, and again, that comes to agency. Whether it's my AI business, where I'm empowering departments or businesses to have agency on how AI is used in their workplace. The advocacy work I did in Congress, I want people to have agency over their bodies, you know, and over, you know, more about the process when you are violated, having agency over that process. Like,
Right.
these are very tech and, you know, sexual assault, very different topics, you know, unless we're talking about deep fakes, and then of course see, it all ties together. But again, but it's about agency and being part of the process, and these are topics that are important to me, you know.
Well, those activities
Everyone's
are all
different.
outside of the virtual world. Those are physical, participatory, tactics that you are doing in your life. And see, but I think a lot of people don't do a lot of that.
Yeah, and I redirected because
do you know what I mean?
I want to be more like that. I want to
Right.
be more the person that instead of just sits here going, yeah, it's all going to hell with them. This is what we got for everyone right here. You know what I mean? Like, how can you become a part of the solution more with some of the things that bother you? I just want to be more like that. I want to exercise more of that in my own life.
I'd say start simple. You can even use ChatGPT and be like, hey, ChatGPT, write a quick email to Congressman so-and-so about Bill X. And then it's going to do it for you. See, we're starting simple. We're starting easy.
Nice and easy.
But then you're going to review it,
You have
and
to.
you're going to read
You
it.
have to, or else it's going to be talking about fishes down the stream.
But you're going to double check it again, and then you're going to find the email on your congressperson's page, and then you're going to send it, and you're going to be like, holy shit, I just did that. You know? And then you're going to go take a walk. You're going to take a walk just around your block. I'm not pushing you too far, you know? Just get out there and take a walk around the block and start there. Start with your email with some AI help and a walk, and go from there. You know,
Get the babe out for some exercise.
you're
well, we were doing
adorable,
that
baby.
before the temperatures were in the teens.
Hey, in Russia, they put them out in 0 degrees.
I know. I'm the one that told you that.
Hey, don't laugh. The walking is like every.
snow
I mean,
naps.
I told you, like 3 to 4 miles a day, every day, outside, no matter what the weather. And
With
it's
your
a
weighted vest.
My weighted vest, but
I
it makes a
know.
huge difference in my life, though. I'm telling you, massive.
I did it
even when
for
I'm
years.
freezing my ass off. Like tonight, I haven't walked yet today. I'll be out tonight before I go to sleep. But I'm telling you, it's cathartic. The time spent alone is cathartic. The activity's great. It makes you think.
I work outside 8 10 hours a day. I ain't taking a walk.
Okay, valid. But just changing your view, you know?
Yep.
Changing your view is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, changing what you see and experience, because repetition is not always your friend.
But it's safe.
Yeah, it is safe.
Fuck safe.
There's
seriously.
that's a
I
good
was
way to end
harking
it.
back
That's a
to my
good one.
point about fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's easier, and you keep saying it's easier, and in my head I just keep thinking, yeah, but I think the biggest draw for so many of us is that it's safe.
Safe. I couldn't agree with you more.
You know, I have PTSD from the military, and my panic attacks used to be extremely debilitating. And how I worked with those was breaking life into steps, into pieces. And when I lived in San Francisco, I had to teach myself how to ride BART by getting off every stop, because I felt trapped in the system, but I had to get to work. So I would give myself 2 fucking hours to get to work, and then I would get off every stop and be like, okay.
Yeah, did you get off in front of the Oakland Coliseum?
No. But I mean,
You're not that brave?
but I gradually, like, pretty soon I was on the train for 2 stops.
Yeah.
And then I was on the train for 3 stops.
I get it.
And I had to confront my fear and learn my new normal, and then also accept that some days I was not riding BART. This was not a good day for that,
Right,
you know?
right.
And that's how you conquer fear, is you don't just go out and like go on a 2-hour train ride.
Yeah.
No, you go by steps. And I will challenge anyone who doesn't know where to start or is afraid, break it down into pieces.
It's like how to eat an elephant.
Exactly. Start
One
with
bite at a
fingernails or toenails.
This could have gone on for 3 hours today.
I know.
This
It's,
was
I told
good.
you.
This
I was
was
like,
good.
this can be long.
I have a
This-
fabulous dinner party that I'm hosting.
Awesome. Good for you. Well, we appreciate you doing it.
You guys will have to come to one of my dinner parties.
Oh,
Right on.
You don't have to twist
I
my
would
arm.
say I've gotten your food sent to me before, so and I've also gotten your meals at parties that we've hosted. So or side dishes.
Did you have fun?
Appetizers.
I thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I love real conversation. Like,
too.
thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. I appreciate you doing it. We didn't even really get that deep. We kind of bounced around a couple subjects, and a couple of them probably needed to go.
I think we got pretty deep.
Yeah.
It's like it's a first date, you know.
Right on.
You don't just want to like go all the way.
You don't want the guy looking at you like, hey, I was just sitting here by myself.
Why are you looking at me?
You're making me uncomfortable.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Peace.
We're out.